Now to start the Tales miniseries, which chronologically takes place before issue 29 that came out right before it because they want to confuse the audience. It starts out with Tales writing and drawing a comic book of his own after riding on a whale or something in the ocean. So I'm assuming this takes place after the miniseries is all said and done. After a brief, harmless recap, Tales returns home with the sea fox. Sally talks to him for a bit, and he gets angry after Sally leaves because he finds her treatment of him patronizing. He leaves with the sea fox while talking as if he's outgrown his friends and no longer needs them, which hardly looks sympathetic. And we cut to a SWAT-bot telling Eggman that his supply blimp is ready to go. Eggman wastes a perfectly good SWAT-bot by destroying it just because it wanted him to check the cargo list against his own. Maybe he said he didn't want to reveal that he misplaced his own lists, but still. He destroys it for not having a face in him, and brags that his new blimp will be fully supplied and capable of dominating the southern hemisphere. He then enables a convenient invisibility cloak for the blimp that only lets you see it if you're directly beneath it. Wait a minute, why the hell would that be the case in the first place? That's one faulty invisibility cloak there. He at least has the excuse that it's only going over the ocean, so it's very unlikely that someone will be there to spot it, but this is a world where we're supposed to believe that even the fish are sentient beings that can talk, as we saw when some fish talked after Tails destroyed an underwater boss heiser with a submarine. So surely the fish would be able to see and news would spread. If he's capable of making an invisibility cloak, you'd think he'd also be capable of making one without that weakness. Tails finds the blimp because he sees a huge shadow on the surface of the water on a day without clouds in the sky, and hovers above the ocean by spinning his tails below him and looking up at the blimp. He decides to try to stealthily approach the pilot house to find out where the blimp is headed, and sees the destination blinking on the navigation computer. Unfortunately, a SWAT-bot on a jetpack comes out of nowhere and stuns him with a ray gun to knock him out of the sky in a random diabolus ex machina and pursues him. Fortunately, he recovers quick enough to start hovering over the ocean with his tails again, and here's possibly his greatest moment of awesome in the comics so far. By spinning his tails below him on the surface of the water, he manages to create a giant water spout that overwhelms the SWAT-bots and disorients them. And again, unlike with Sonic turning invisible, I don't have a problem with this because Tails was based off the Japanese kitsune, which is full of magical abilities, including the ability to control the water. Plus, Tails is implied later in the comics to have an incredible connection with Chaos Force, so him having the power to do this makes perfect sense. It's a shame he doesn't use his magical powers for combat more often. He'd be a lot more competent that way. So is another diabolus ex machina gonna show up and immediately undercut his moment of awesome? Yes, of course it does, because Tails isn't allowed to be useful yet. Instead, a giant octopus robot, the same one he humiliated with his submarine on his maiden voyage, surprises him when he tries to enter the sea box, because apparently destroying the octopus with missiles in the first place was just too smart of a plan for Tails. After Tails sinks into the water to apparently drown, Eggman is informed of Tails' fate, and he yells at the SWAT-bot talking to him for allowing Tails to detect the blimp so easily, as if he could have prevented that. Eggman then calls his new underboss in Mobius, Australia, Crockbot. It makes perfect sense that Eggman would have to rely on underbosses for the monumental task of running an entire planet, because that'd be way too much work for one man otherwise, to the point where I wonder what the appeal of taking over the world would even be with all that paperwork. So I love this concept. It's great world building, makes perfect sense. Eggman tells him that his supplies are on the way, and soon he'll have everything he'll need to pollute down under. I wonder why it took him this long to do so. And Crockbot says he'll send a pack of flying robot dogs out to meet the blimp to ensure a safe delivery. Crockbot then shows himself to actually be interesting by bragging that he's going to be a villain of his own and turn on Eggman, and plans on rewiring the SWAT-bot crew to become his slaves. I'm not sure why Eggman thought giving this guy free will is a good idea, not to mention giving him the ability to know how to rewire them to become his slaves. But I'm just happy to have a villain other than Eggman for once at this point, even if he's not very interesting personality-wise because he's just evil, and that's it. Tails finally wakes up above the water complaining about his aching head, riding on top of a water creature that saved him, and is talked to by a non-poisonous mantafish. What is it with Sonic comics having every single animal being able to talk? Especially since it doesn't have hands. So, sentience is kind of wasted, isn't it? Tails is told that he was saved by a band of underwater freedom fighters who I'm guessing are going to be just as bland and lifeless as all the other freedom fighters we've seen so far. These sea creatures have been fighting the Octobot for quite some time before this, but failed to destroy it by now for some reason. even though they're able to fight it and survive. Tails was told that a submarine was destroyed, and the giant whale Tails was riding on top of all this time, who had logically trashed Octobot, agrees to take Tails to Down Under because it's on his annual migration route anyways. If the underwater freedom fighters have the sky on his side, why didn't they destroy Octobot a long time ago? And the issue ends with Tails looking forward to stopping Eggman and proving himself to the freedom fighters are just as capable as they are. So he's not really abandoning his friends, as he plans to return to them later anyways. So far, I enjoyed this story. It was a pretty engaging adventure and nothing really angered me about it, and despite being written by Mike Gallagher, the tone was generally pretty fine with no forced comedy in sight. I liked seeing Tails get to be competent. I especially liked his controlling the water with his tails at one point, although unfortunately he was made very quickly incompetent again by Octobot sneaking up on him, requiring him to be rescued. I also liked the concept of Crocbot being a rival villain to Eggman, even if it was unusual that he had free will for that. And I liked the concept of the blimp that's only visible from directly below, although I wish they at least tried to explain why it had such a glaring and inexplicable weakness. Did they run out of invisible making paint and didn't have the means to get more? I guess so.